A very good evening to you all from wherever you're watching from. Thank you for watching UBC Television. This is your UBC News Tonight, broadcasting live from Nile Avenue. With me, your news anchor, Wadulo, Mark Arnold. Without further ado, let's take a look at tonight's top stories before we dive into the bulletin. And in our top stories tonight, 4 people, including former Erute North MP, die in a road accident. Pioneer Prisons command and staff trainees passed out. And then Lands Commission gives 6,000 land titles to Rampara residents. Lands advised to adopt Kiswahili for more socio-economic opportunities. All these in our news tonight. Thank you for joining us once again, and now we give you the news in detail. Now, we start off on a tragic note. A tragic accident occurred in the early morning this day, resulting into the death of 4 individuals and leaving 2 others injured. The incident took place at approximately 6:12 a.m. along Karuma-Pakwach Highway in Ayago within the Murchison Game Park. Let's have a look.
Karado wano te kilo wani chao kene goro wa birutie wano ko bene oba wa kwa wa ti chingi wan ko mo biru pi chingi wano ko ko mda pinyi akara wano to yini ko ni wano to yin mo wan puruti yin jo wa woro tinu wa woro ye me ateni tell we ye na tell wa da do ti ye teni.
And from there, for 3 years that I took in Parliament, we were very, very close buddies, very close indeed. And we formed an activist group called Ture Adek, where we made it clear that our objective for the 5 years is to fight for the common good of the people of Lango. And we started with a campaign to ensure that electricity distribution and use in Leda is sufficient. We led a very effective campaign demonstration in Leda's town, and we succeeded. In fact, we changed the whole management of electricity in Leda and Lango region. We were arrested together, we were beaten. He was badly beaten by the state, by the way. We used to call him Abajan. He nicknamed me Abachanyen, meaning I'm the new fighter. For him, he's the old fighter. So this had been kind of a man you would rely on. He was very confident, he was very determined, he was very independent in thinking. He was somebody who could not betray you. When you define a mission, Abajan would go for it. You remember when people were fighting in the Parliament, when MPs were being beaten, he was among the few MPs who were badly beaten because of fighting against the removal of the age limit. He was among them. So he had been fighting for constitutionalism, rule of law, rights of the citizens, and all things which are about rights of the people. Goodmai was always on the forefront. I will dearly miss him. I will miss his courage, his charisma, his ability to work for the people relentlessly without a bribe.
Well, UBC TV sympathizes with the loss of the loved ones, and we do wish them to rest in peace. Now, in other news, the Vice President Major Retired Jessica Alupo has urged schools to revive patriotism clubs as a measure to help instill a sense of love for the country among students. While presiding over the pass-out of over 1,090 students drawn from 17 secondary schools and 2 tertiary institutions within Katakwi district, the Vice President said that skills such as these will help them in their patriotism endeavors. She asked the students to be selfless people, hardworking, responsible, enduring, sacrificing people, disciplined, nationalistic, unifiers, and developmental, peaceful people as opposed to violence, ready to volunteer and be God-fearing as well.
Dr. President, this year I'm happy to tell you that the number is slightly increased from 1,000 to 1,490. pray for paradise, we shall do the mobilization, and most of us will now be there.
Let me congratulate the 1,200 patriots who we are commissioning today. And I would like to thank them and all their teachers for giving them the motivation to participate in this patriotism program. Ladies and gentlemen, government of Uganda, as you may wish to note, works with everybody. The first and the strongest pillar of NRM has been unity for everybody in the country. Unity for people from northern Uganda with eastern Uganda, with western Uganda and central Uganda. And as we stand here, the whole country is united. And that has been able to be achieved because of the clear-headed leadership of our president, who is His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And he has been able to do that because of programs, among others, like this one of patriotism. Because when you start grooming young ones at this stage against sectarianism, then by the time they sit in offices, by the time they are doing their businesses, they will continue embracing unity and considering Uganda as a strong starting point for them without thinking about any cliquism. So I would like us to clap for His Excellency the President for bringing us so far up to now in terms of unifying the country and ensuring that these kind of programs are institutionalized in order to make them sustainable and keep us in shape with a clear direction as we move towards the middle income status. Here today, I see a very big component or sector of human resource development. This is education. Government believes in holistic education. Holistic education means you go to class, you go to the field, and now you also have ideological training like what you have been taken through. So I would like to thank government and the facilitators of this for choosing to come to Katakwi to give ideological aspect of education to these learners. I would like to encourage you, as His Excellency the President, your patron, the initiator of your program, has always encouraged you to take up science programs and ICT. Because today, we need more initiators. We need more people with incubation centers to create jobs and create wealth. Because Uganda is a private sector-led country, our economy is private sector-led. I call upon all the teachers to as early as possible, enable our students to understand the meaning of a private sector-led so that they can in future initiate their private enterprises. And because if you have taught them already, they know that they are now supposed to employ others. And that's the meaning of private sector-led. All of us, you and I, can do something to make our economy stronger by understanding that it is private sector-led. I would like also to give feedback to this audience because many of them are from the district civil servants and also the leadership of the security here. With the interaction I had with the people recently, the information I have is that people are still lukewarm against the parish development model here because they are fearing that if they fail to pay, their land might be taken. That if they fail to pay, they will make them criminals and arrest them. That if they fail to pay, even what is in their account, which was there before, which is not part of this money, will be followed and taken away. And they are saying that that's why maybe they are asking for their account numbers, and that's why they are asking for their phone numbers. So I would like to call upon teachers, head teachers, to join this information sharing with the local community. For instance, government has implemented a program called Entandikwa, which was meant to liberate us from poverty. Program has also, government also has implemented a program called NADS, meant to remove us from poverty. The program called OWC, a program called the Women Fund, a program called the Youth Fund. All those programs, including EMIOGA, the newest EMIOGA. So from the time all those programs were implemented, no one has lost land, and yet we have benefited from those programs. That is the impression I would like you teachers to go and tell the communities. I'm telling you what I heard from them personally. I would like to call upon also teachers to participate in those householding camps, so that when His Excellency the President comes around, we should visit one of the teachers' projects. Because as you know, what you do as teachers is what the students also always would like to emulate. Let me now take this privilege and declare you officially passed out today. Congratulations once again.
So there is an instructions, and I lepon and chamakina la chakine pare.
In other news, the pioneer senior and junior prisons officers who have been undergoing a 4-month week intermediate command and staff training course at Luzira Prisons Academy has been passed out. The 20 officers ranged from principal officers to senior superintendent of prisons were passed out at a ceremony presided over by the Minister of Internal Affairs, Major General Kahinda Watafire. Details in this report.
The Minister for Internal Affairs, Major General Kahinda Watafire, has revealed government's intentions of integrating all the training programs of all armed forces in order to do away with a colonial setup where both police and prison officers are treated as civil servants while the army is regarded separately. Officiating at the inaugural pass-out ceremony of 20 junior and senior prisons officers who have been undergoing a 4-week intermediate command and staff course at Luzira Prisons Academy, Kahinda Watafire said that since police, prisons and Uganda People's Defence Forces are involved in the handling of firearms, they shouldn't be treated as civil servants.
The colonial philosophy was the police force, the prison service as civilian services. They are civilian services. They were recruited, treated, and handled as civil servants. But these are institutions which have arms. So, in short, they are security services. And security services should not be handled like ordinary civil servants.
He also revealed government's plans of giving a facelift to all the old-fashioned prison structures to match the current standards.
So these institutions have to be revamped, rebuilt, and thought about. You know, we have now to build a prison headquarters, prisons that are commensurate with the current population and the prison population levels. Because at that time, the whole prison population was maybe 6,000, 7,000. Now he is talking of 7,000. 76,000.
Prisons officials led by Commissioner General Dr. Johnson Biawasaija hailed the new program, saying that it will help officers of the low ranks from prison warders to get promotions through continuous professional development.
That will require you to put into consideration the resources you have so that you avoid the silly mistakes. Some of you are officers in charge, some of you are deputies, some of you are even inspectors. You should now be able to do your work effectively.
But they have not been getting promotional trainings, and therefore, while the training they had was for entry, now they are at the senior level, and they needed to understand the basics and the modes of management without reinventing the wheel.
Senior officials from the Uganda Prison Service, Uganda Prisons Authority, police and UPDF, among others, attended the function. Joko Collins compiled this report.
The Uganda Communications Commission has decommissioned illegal radio station equipment captured from various radio stations around the country for treatment and disposal at UPDF's NEC Luero Industries Limited. This was done in accordance with the Uganda Communications Commission Act of 2013, which mandates UCC to close down and apprehend assets of illegal communications entities operating in the country. I had a chance to witness this. Numerous regional and community radio equipment has been decommissioned by Uganda Communications Commission. The head, Public and International Relations at UCC, Rebecca Mukite, says this enforcement has been undergoing since before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, but climaxed only a month ago.
We got a number of broadcasters and community broadcasters, upcountry especially, who had gone ahead to assign themselves channels and have started running broadcast houses without licensing or authorization or spectrum assigned to them from UCC.
At this site, the scrap is dismantled, separated and segregated into different components, where the plastic is shredded and the metal is melted as raw material. NEMA's e-waste guidelines require any entity disposing of waste to do it in a standardized manner.
In this case, you find that they are providing commercial services that ideally should be provided by a licensed broadcaster. People pay that Chizindalo to make announcements, to run adverts for their products, to do a lot of things over and above what people deem as community service. Because a lot of the people who justify them say that, no, this Chizindalo helps us to announce children who are lost and what. But when you listen in actual sense, most of these Chizindalos are running adverts. Some of the people find actually even the adverts offensive to an extent. Sometimes the content is aggressive in terms of the person who's on that Chizindalo is asserting their opinion on a subject matter that is shouldn't be broadcast like that without the framework of the minimum broadcasting standards.
All communications operators using broadcast, print and digital channels are advised to stay compliant with the Commission's regulations by acquiring relevant licenses and updating those that have expired to avoid falling victim to the enforcement. Wadulo Makanol, UBC News, in Luero.
Uganda waranchi bakusako manrane chikona tena tekobo seko season yakuna savu July kuma mal papa's hall usasule kwa MTN mobile money usasule gumu chitundu MTN usasule nega komitano iga sistemu kagatano stamu enda munana hasha kwa MTN ofune tiketi yokati wabula kumulyango usasule mitwale ebiri yepe mitwale 5 ate meza ya milioni 2 munana July koni ni hotel mkono mwenda July Nikan Resort Erweza 15 July France Africa Jinja abiri July Maria Flema Saka abiri mwenda July Afro Club Sangati at Talent Africa Victoria University Suzu Property Consultants Pepsi Max Uganda Warranty
MTN. Attention coffee farmers, traders and processors. Uganda Coffee Development Authority has important advice for a successful harvest season. Pick only red farm cherries to achieve good weight and high quality coffee. For natural processing, Dry coffee on tarpaulin, concrete or clothing to avoid mold growth. Avoid heaping coffee on the floor. Store coffee in jute bags and in ventilated rooms on wooden pallets. For more information on good harvest practices, visit your nearest extension worker or Uganda Coffee Development Authority offices.
This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. His reason is to be the GOAT. The reason to imagine is to take the beat and make it lit. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
The drilling of development and production wells for the Kingfisher project in Kikube district started in January 2023, while the delivery and assembly of the 3 drilling rigs for the Tilenga project is ongoing. Enabling infrastructure works for the other required facilities, including the central processing facilities, well pads, flow lines and camps, remain on course. The produced resources will be commercialized via the East Africa crude oil pipeline, which will run from Uganda to Tanzania, and the 60,000 barrels of oil per day Uganda refinery project, which will be constructed in Hoima. These projects are bringing investment of $15 billion into the country. The Petroleum Authority of Uganda, creating lasting value in Uganda's oil journey.
Are you tired of high fees and slow transfer time when sending money? Airtel Money is here to revolutionize the way you move your money. We have revised our rates back to ground. Sending money from Airtel to other networks in Uganda, East Africa, and to the rest of the world has never been more affordable. Dial *185# and start sending money. Switch to Airtel Money today and experience unbeatable rates and top-notch services for all your local and international money transfer needs. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, it is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
And in talking news, MTN has improved on their data voice bundles. You can now call across all networks for the same price. We've talked to several eyewitnesses on the ground, and this is what one of them had to say.
Amos, did you hear about the MTN daily voice bundles?
So, to join many more other Ugandans enjoying these MTN daily voice bundles, dial *100 *21# or use the My MTN app to start enjoying it. Stay tuned for more offers from MTN.
Welcome back. You're still watching the UBC News Tonight, broadcasting live from Nile Avenue. Now, in more news, the Lands Minister Judith Nabakova has handed over 600 freehold land titles to the residents of the district at an event held in Rugando and Rwampara East constituency. This process is part of the efforts of the Uganda Lands Commission under the package of the government's land fund. Let's take a look.
Hundreds of residents of Rwampara district woke up on the Friday morning with smiles all over their faces as government was set to hand over freehold land titles to them. The handover events held in Rugando sub-county and Rwampara East were presided over by the Lands Minister Judith Nabakova.
Land titles zino ezigenda okubaweebwa za freehold. Kitegeeza nti bw'oba olina freehold title kiraga nti ettaka lidyo si ya gavumenti si yani. Yes, it's your land and you are the owner legally, legally, culturally, socially, lidyo.
Chiza Daniel Nanakauchi, Alexis Chiza.
The over 1,844 acres of land has been under the pockets of Prince John Bagaya and now ready to benefit locals.
Myako gwa 96 katandike kyapa ekina bagenzi banje abantu babitunga konka kyarema.
President waffe Museveni atukoledde bulungi n'aba abatuzwekera
Shisha Joyce temutunda ttaka lyammwe certificates zammwe muzikuume n'ettaka mulikolereko. Abamu mujja kgenda mwewole omuntu agambe nti omuguzizza oba tosobola kusoma luzungu bulungi toteekako omukono. I'm sorry.
Secured by Uganda Land Commission under the support of the Uganda Land Fund, the beneficiaries are being urged to make good use of this package.
Tuwakakasa nti ebyapa byonna bye twakabawa n'ebye tutanabawa byonna bigenda kuggwaayo era buli omu ajja kufuna ekyapa kye.
So the youth get involved in the economic empowerment programs that have been brought up by the ADR government. Teach others how to work, but also to embrace the respective programs.
The minister's take-home message to the beneficiaries was simple as she tasked the Rwampara communities to desist from land fragmentation.
So it's important that we avoid land fragmentation, keep the land together as a family. Even where possible, you can register a trustee and hold that land together in a trustee. And a trustee, I think, is a secure way of keeping land together as a family or as a community.
Religious leaders and politicians from all levels were present.
We want to balance it off. Those who have not paid should pay, but those who have paid should have their titles.
And office ya feno ya Minister wa Lands wachicha mudeski nojireta mu bantu yatusima nnyo kubanga buli kadde buli kiseera tukulaba ng'otambula ogenda abantu bategera omugaso gwa ministry yaffe ya Lands.
Ebyapa 8 byaburayo aha abantu abarwampara county nabyo babaraganisa ngo mu kwezi kumwe beja kuba ni babireta.
The benefiting communities include churches, schools, health facilities, among others. Robert Onyango, UBC News.
And this brings us to the end of our 8 o'clock edition to give way for the weekly business roundup with Dennis Sigoa. You've been a lovely audience. Do join us at 10 o'clock for a lengthier bulletin.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The biggest August, the baddest East African Christian Marathon is here. Come participate at the East African Christian Marathon for a prayer run on the 13th of August 2023 at the Lugogo Hockey Grounds. Come represent your family at the prayer run and run for a good cause to build the first call center, which will be East Africa's virtual listener. Come for the prayer run alongside your pastors, leaders, representatives from Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, South Sudan, and of course Uganda. Participate with Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, who is the chief runner and patron. Do not miss out on this opportunity. Make your donation for your kid now from 20,000, 30,000, and 100,000 Uganda shillings, because runs change the world. For more details, call 0781 885 055 or visit our website at www.eastafricachristianmarathon.org. Proudly sponsored by PKF, UBC, Venro Health, Aquafina, and Moving Preacher.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Hello, it's time for business. It's Business Roundup right here on UBC. I'm your host, Dennis Ikoa. As usual, we take you through the trending business stories of the week and insightful news features. To the highlights, Uganda's fintech landscape is poised for significant expansion. Conservationist Dr. Gladys Kalema Zikusoka unveils a memoir on her life protecting the critically endangered mountain gorillas. Dr. Raymond Gilpin, UNDP Africa Chief Economist, speaks to BRU on raising the capacity of African economies. And last but not least, public transport sector players heighten security in the wake of terror alert. For this and more, stay tuned. It's 30 minutes of real business. To our first story of the night, Dr. Gladys Kalema Zikusoka, Uganda's first wildlife veterinary doctor, unveiled a memoir on her life protecting the critically endangered mountain gorillas. In her memoir, Dr. Kalema highlights the importance of conserving gorillas and the dangers posed by human encroachment on wildlife habitats. Salata Muge has the details.
Working with Gorillas, the Journey of an African Wildlife Vet, is a memoir unveiled by Dr. Gladys Kalema Zikusoka, the founder of an indigenous non-governmental organization, Conservation Through Public Health.
When I started out in the wildlife veterinary field, there were hardly any women. And so that was an interesting experience. And actually, people used to ask me, are you taken seriously as a woman? And I used to say, yes, I am. I never really used to notice it. Yeah. And I guess maybe because I was bringing a unique skill to the table at the Uganda National Park, became Uganda Wildlife Authority, being their first vet. Everybody really respected me. I remember when one time my mom dropped me off and the ranger saluted to me, and my mom was like, hey, they're saluting to my daughter. But that's the hierarchy at Uganda Wildlife Authority.
Dr. Gladys, Uganda's first wildlife veterinarian, tells the remarkable story of her life protecting the critically endangered mountain gorillas in Bwindi Impenetrable National Park. Her efforts geared at protecting human beings' closest relative have been lauded within Uganda and across the globe.
She's a national treasure, and there are so many things to be gained from her memoir, from her life stories and her work. The importance of conservation and what it means to a country's development, the intersection between animal health and human health, and how we all can play a role in safeguarding Uganda's biodiversity for health, for economic development and for future generations to enjoy. So, and then also her book is a good lesson about perseverance, about following your dreams, and certainly about the important role that women can play in fields that historically have been dominated by men.
We should all congratulate Gladys for her outstanding vision and courage and determination to continue with her guerrilla conservation work despite the many challenges she and her colleagues have faced. Gladys has created a unique career based on her love of wildlife. Gladys has quite rightly received global recognition of her work, and she has collected many awards along the way.
Preserving our natural world, protecting its wildlife, helping community to coexist in harmony with nature is one of our biggest challenges of our time, and it's a shared responsibility.
Public sector stakeholders in attendance emphasized the importance of her memoir in marketing destination Uganda and enhancing wildlife conservation.
Brand Dr. Gladys Kalema is a sub-brand of Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, and you have been one of the great ambassadors of Uganda. You have sold Uganda.
Just talking about the life in Uganda. There are those who want to just come and see Uganda because of what they have read. Then there is the other aspect of what I talked about. When we are talking health of animals, let's not forget human health, let's not forget livestock. And these three, the wildlife, the humans, and the livestock are in an environment. So we take the One Health approach. That's what we call it.
Dr. Ziksoka's career-defining moment came when she discovered over a decade ago that gorillas were suffering some diseases that had been contracted as a result of human contact.
Because when we visit them, we can easily make them sick. And so disease from the communities when they go outside the park to eat people's banana plants because their habitat is so encroached on, or from the tourists themselves who are coming to see them. They can bring a fatal flu from the aeroplane. So those are the two biggest threats to the gorillas, habitat loss and disease.
Thus, she became a strong voice in Uganda to advocate a One Health approach that is now operating in many parts of the world.
Uganda's hospitality industry is changing with the trends in a bid to improve guest experience and offer convenience to customers, thanks to a rapid technological adoption that has come up with numerous benefits despite fear of cyber threats that are becoming more rampant. Take a look.
The hospitality industry in Uganda is going digital, and credit goes to the global technological advancements and partnerships that offer convenience and improve guest experience. There are numerous benefits that technology has brought to the hospitality industry, and this can be attested by sector players such as Fairway Hotel in Kampala.
So maybe the COVID also brought more reasons as to why we should opt for technology options. So a person can actually pay without even seeing you. So it's smooth. We make it simple. You can just swipe at the end of the stay, or you pay prior to your stay. You don't have to use any cash. So it's simpler because they don't know the currency. We are limiting all chances of cheating them, everything. So even the meals, when they're here, they don't need cash. They can post it to their room. We have what we call the easy system.
Paperless transactions are encouraged in a bid to improve guest experience, increase efficiency, reduce physical contact between the hotel staff and clients, in addition to lowering staff workload. The new technologies that are steadily gaining headway in Uganda's hospitality industry include contactless payments, mobile-enabled check-ins, and the Internet of Things.
We have this manual one for people who come directly to our offices in Kampala. However, we also have the online platform. There is a link that we share with our customers whenever they're in different countries. They are the ones that they mostly use that link. So this link, when you share it, it will just request for your account details. You let know the amount of money that you want to transfer to our account. You put it in, then you confirm using your PIN. When you confirm that, the money will reflect directly on our account. Also, when you're using this machine, you just need your Visa card. When you get your Visa card, you insert it in, or you can just swipe in, or you can just tap it over on the top. when you tap it on the top, you just select the currency. Right now we're using two currencies, that's the USD and then the UGX. When you use those currencies, you select the currency that you want to use.
For the case of Fairway Hotel, their collaboration with PesaPal, an online payment gateway, has been a game changer.
Well, it helps to ease also the check-in process, that when you get to the hotel, you don't have to spend a lot of time at the desk doing the check-in process. You'll have already paid everything and you just come and collect your key card and go to your room, yeah? When you have to pay for a conference space, to avoid all this back and forth with staff of, give me my invoice, let me do this, you'll have cleared everything, and when you're done, you're just good to go. So,
although some business owners see technology adoption as an additional expense, which is not worth to invest in, experts think otherwise.
The idea is that even now, if you say you can be able to offer a product X, somebody would have to first go digital or else online and check what do you offer in the market. Once they have seen what you can offer, then they can be able to contact you or else come to your shop. So there is a big market potential you can reach by going digital. And you have seen some of these enterprises, especially in when we did our study, which was focusing on how on the impacts of COVID-19 on MSMEs. We are trying to see how some of these enterprises that are going digital, what kind of opportunities they are already tapping into. So generally we realize that there is already a trend. There is enterprises have picked up, and most of the enterprises are trying to cope up with the future challenges here, accessing gadgets, the internet costs. But by and large, we see that there is that kind of positive appreciation of e-commerce, and most of the enterprises are going digital.
Despite the steady adoption of technology across board, there are challenges that are increasingly being faced. These include cybersecurity threats, skills gap, data protection and privacy, cost of internet, poor connectivity. Dennis Thigoa and Charlotte Amuge for UBC Business.
On tech space, Uganda's fintech landscape is poised for significant expansion. It is attributed to an expanding tech-savvy population, increased internet penetration, and a supportive regulatory environment. This was observed at the High People Fintech Landscape Exhibition in Kampala. The annual event acts as a platform for networking, knowledge sharing, and further collaboration within the fintech industry.
High People's Fintech Landscape Exhibition aims to showcase Uganda's remarkable journey in financial technology and celebrate the profound impact of fintech in fostering financial inclusion throughout the country.
We also promise to keep making rules and policies that help better the environment for the startups, financial technology companies, and digital financial services across the economy.
The exhibition is a culmination of a remarkable initiative called 40 Days, 40 Fintechs. This public engagement campaign provided a platform for showcasing 43 innovative fintech companies. These companies have played a pivotal role in transforming Uganda's fintech space and have been instrumental in driving financial inclusion and digital transformation.
We are very excited about seeing a lot of fruits happening as a result of continuous advocacy, as a result of setting a number of examples that help many users, innovators, regulators, and all the other players get to speed in making sure that we work in ways that help all of us as players in the economy maximize our digital dividend.
By leveraging fintech, innovators in Uganda have enabled faster and more secure transactions, expanded access to mobile banking, and encouraged the adoption of digital payment systems.
I would advise any innovator coming into our space to, one, understand who they are coming to look for. Because you see, like for us, we have specifically narrowed down our targets to this corporate worker who has an emergency. But there is an opportunity in this Chikubo guy who makes 20,000, 50,000, 30,000 every day, but whenever they have emergencies, no one gives them money because they don't have their earnings documented, and even they themselves, they don't know how the month is going to go.
If we're to speak from an African point of view, a lot of the technologies we use, a lot of the products that we reproduce have come from a certain setting. They are built to deal with a middle class that is urbanized, that is salaried, that gets their money through. Their money comes electronically. So the money starts in the bank. Here, most money doesn't start in the bank. So all of our competition is cash. Everyone here will talk about we're trying to digitize, but we're trying to digitize someone who has cash. As a Ugandan, I can never leave my home without cash.
Looking ahead, industry experts predict continued growth in Uganda's fintech sector. With a burgeoning tech-savvy population, increased internet penetration, and a supportive regulatory environment, the fintech industry is poised for significant expansion.
I remember myself sometime in 2009, I wrote to the late Professor Emmanuel Mtebire, who was the governor of the Bank of Uganda, because I'd walked to 13 banks looking for a loan, and I couldn't get one to buy computers for high people. So because I got angry, I had to write to him and express my discomfort with the banking system. Even getting a loan of 50,000 shillings was as hard as wanting to share a river with someone. Today, the landscape has changed. Anyone, based on how they use their phones, I mean, recently in Kenya, Safaricom created a new product that allows people to buy food using their airtime. I mean, that is how far we've gone. We're speaking about hundreds of millions of people that can now get loans.
Charlotte Amuge and Dennis Igoa for UBC Business.
In our exclusive interview, we are privileged to have a one-on-one interaction with Dr. Raymond Gilpin, UNDP Africa Chief Economist. Dr. Gilpin spoke to Mark Wadulo on issues pertaining to raising the capacity of African economists. Let's have a look.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in for this exclusive interview, the weekly business roundup with me, your host, Wadulo Mark Arnold. We're always delighted to share with you a number of economic, insights, both regional, national, and also continental. And at the moment, we are going to be going continental. And right about now with me is Mr. Raymond, Dr. Raymond Gilpin, who is the African Chief Economist at the UNDP. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes, and we're going to be discussing quite a number of pertinent issues got to do with the economy within Africa, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. So allow me let Mr. Gilpin introduce himself, and we could start from there.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Mark. As you said, my name is Raymond Gilpin. I'm the Chief Economist for the Africa Bureau of UNDP, and I'm based in New York. Okay. It's really great to be here to have a conversation about where Africa is at the moment and what more we need to do in the coming years to attain all of our goals.
How can African countries effectively address the financing challenges they face in achieving the SDGs and Agenda 2063? Considering the changing development finance landscape and the emergence of new actors and sources of funding?
That is at the heart of Africa's development challenge in the next decade, I think. How do we deal with the fact that development assistance to Africa is decreasing? How do we deal with the fact that Africa receives only a small percentage of global foreign direct investments? How do we deal with this paradox that most financial institutions are liquid, they have money, but the money doesn't make its way to opportunities? And as you rightly alluded in your question, we have to think about alternative mechanisms and sources. And for me, it has to start domestically. UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, did a study that estimated the amount of money African countries lose because of illicit financial flows. And that has a lot to do with how we think about the ability or the capacity of African countries to manage the domestic resources that they receive. How do we make sure that the tax loopholes are closed? How do we make sure that the tax base is widened? And how do we make sure that public financing is handled and managed much better? UNDP works a lot with countries around the world and also here in Uganda through a number of frameworks. One is something we call the Integrated National Financing Framework, which provides not just a framework, but also provides technical assistance and upskilling to help countries, and here in this case African countries, to be able to manage their resources, to be able to also increase domestic resource mobilization. We also work with something called tax Inspectors Without Borders, which help African countries to plug some of these leakages and strengthen institutional capacity to increase domestic resource mobilization. So if we're able to do that, that is great. But one problem with the financing question for Africa is that development assistance is going down. The amount that you will get from domestic sources, even if we plugged all the leakages, is insufficient to fill the SDG financing gaps. So a lot of African countries are borrowing, and therefore we have this debt issue.
Yes, and we're running deficit budgets all the way.
Yes,
yeah.
And the debt issue is twofold. One, the amount of debt that African countries have, the stock of debt. But also more importantly is the debt financing burden, which has to do with the cost of borrowing. UNDP recently did a study that showed that the cost of borrowing is crippling some African countries, because countries are then in a position of choosing between servicing their debt, i.e. paying their creditors, or investing in development.
Their country, their economy.
And so we have to pay attention to the debt issue, both in terms of how much African countries borrow and also the cost of such borrowing.
Okay. So I'll take an example from Uganda. We are a little above 50% of our GDP, our debt to GDP ratio. And basing on our national budget, a large proportion of our budget is, dedicated to debt servicing, which is leaving us with very little money to, to development, yeah? And what I'm seeing coming out of this is that we are looking at over 30 years of, debt servicing, but we need to borrow again. We still need to borrow to be able to service the country. Our president argues that we don't need to borrow, and we are actually moving towards not having to borrow at all, unless we're maybe borrowing locally, okay? But where does this put countries like us? How are we going to be able to manage without borrowing, as our president wants us to?
The issue about financing sustainable development goals, some work has been done about what the financing gap is, i.e. the gap between what countries have identified or they've been able to collect to finance and how much they actually need to finance. For Africa as a whole, between now and 2030, the estimate is at about $200 billion a year. And so that is a huge, price ticket. And how African countries get around this challenge of we need these investments now, and we are short in terms of our ability to generate and also in our ability to identify alternative sources, becomes a challenge. But for me, I think part of the discussion has got to be, how do we have a debt management strategy so that if you do borrow, that borrowing is actually going where it needs to go, so that you're able to have the investments in people, you're able to provide liquidity and credits where it's needed, and you're able to invest in the future.
Concrete actions are needed in order to promote alternative dispute resolution process and in turn position Uganda as an attractive destination for arbitration. We have an insight on how ADR works in this episode.
The National Summit on Alternative Dispute Resolution was convened to address key challenges and opportunities in the field of ADR, with a specific focus on transforming Uganda into an attractive destination for arbitration dispute resolution. Attended by various stakeholders from the legal sector, financial sector, among others, it facilitated the exchange of ideas, best practices and innovative solutions to promote an undertaking of the role of conflict management, mediation and conciliation in sustainable development.
Modern system of justice has many lessons to learn and replicate from the African concept of justice. These systems related to the people daily and appreciated their need for
our courts, that we want to bring a substitute system. We are simply asking the courts that, in line with our constitution, allow the people to participate in the resolution of disputes.
Uganda Bankers Association, a co-host of the summit, underscored the need for promoting ADR. According to the association, alternative dispute resolution has numerous justifications and benefits, since it not only supplements the existing justice system, but it is a fast, cost-efficient and less acrimonious alternative.
There are lots of changes happening. As a matter of fact, ADR comes at the best stage now because not everything has to go to court. Things can be solved outside the court, cut the losses and continue doing business. So it couldn't have come at a better time, and it will affect the new products coming, the existing ones and various services across the industry.
ADR actually has always been in place. It's just that right now we're giving it the limelight that it deserves. We're taking advantage of the fact that the rest of the world has embraced the African way of resolving disputes, so we should not be left behind, yet we are the originators of ADR.
It is also crucial for this country to develop a national ADR policy that will give important direction both on matters concerning ADR in general and on the appointment and accreditation of ADR practitioners in particular.
Stakeholders argue that ADR is key in building confidence and risking investment across various sectors. Arbitration is less formal than going to court. It is a legal proceeding that results in an award that is generally final and binding. Its goal is to keep cases moving in a fair and impartial process until completion.
Parties get opportunity to, together with their adversaries, negotiate with the help of other people, with the guidance of court, and resolve a dispute in a more reconciliatory manner, so that everybody gets a win-win situation and they both go home happy.
At the conclusion of the first annual summit on ADR in Uganda, an alternative justice system strategy for the judiciary in Uganda was unveiled by the Deputy Chief Justice, Richard Butera.
One of the elements of the alternative dispute resolution mechanism that we are talking about is training more people than just the judges. You train the lawyers, you train members of the public, and they can actually resolve their disputes even before they are filed in court. They can agree to negotiate or arbitrate or mediate, and that dispute will not have to come to court if it is resolved pre-trial. If it has come to court, the court can also give opportunity for the matter to be resolved without full hearing. In either case, the workload on the judicial officers is less.
Stakeholders in attendance concurred on the need for concrete action and steps towards addressing not only the changing landscape of financial disputes, but also proposed more building blocks required to harness the numerous opportunities presented by players in the different sectors of the economy, including the fintech space, construction, energy, including oil and gas.
Oil and gas players, they are faced with disputes all the time: environmental damages, displacements, the processing, and so on. This is the best route for them, because then they don't have to spend time and lock money in courts. It is better to sort them out of court, sit around the table. Same with the telecoms.
Lawyers should be able to buy in, because of course there will be business. Even within ADR there is still business.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's only litigation that brings businesses to the lawyers. So within ADR, there's a lot of business to do. And therefore, they should not differ from this process. As this process is being incorporated, the client will always be available to ADR and also to litigation.
Dennis Sikoa and Rebecca Kenyano for UBC Business.
So we want to give the information to our passengers that if you're coming within the bus terminal, don't be so scared because you've made some changes to make sure that we are checking. If you find some officers at our gates trying to check your bags or opening your stuff, just be polite to them because of the security issues around the terminal. And also to people who are coming from other countries, we have made some changes for the buses which are coming from, let me say, from Kenya, Burundi, Sudan, and Congo. If a bus reaches the terminal here, there is some small communication which they are making. Actually, we had communicated to the bus operators which are crossing the borders that once the bus reaches here, we have to open your bags and also your goods to make sure that the issue of security is alert within the country here.
The business fraternity in Uganda and across the region is mourning the untimely death of businessman Apollo Nyegamehe, popularly known as Aponye. As the BRU team, we send our condolences to the family, friends and business partners of the late Aponye. Otherwise, we are glad you have been part of another episode of BRU. Let's catch up next week. I've been your host, Dennis Igor. Ciao.
The National Council for Higher Education, as part of its 20th anniversary celebrations, has organized a blended public lecture under the theme Financing of and Investment in Higher Education in Uganda. This public lecture will engage higher education experts, stakeholders and the public to examine the importance of finance and investment in higher education in Uganda and provide a platform for reviewing, developing and implementing appropriate strategies that will enable the delivery of quality higher education. The keynote speaker will be Dr. Joseph Muvawala, Executive Director, National Planning Authority. The panelists of this public lecture are Mr. Ramadan Gobi, Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury, Dr. Florence Maega Nakaiwa, Deputy Executive Secretary in charge of Planning, Resource Mobilization and Management, RUFORAM, Professor Waso Abalunywa, Higher Education Management Expert, Dr. Ruth Biyinzika Kasolo, Project Director, Private Sector Foundation Uganda, Dr. Fred Muhumuza, a development economist. The moderator for this public lecture will be Mr. Robert Kabushenga. The venue is Serena Conference Hall, Kampala on Tuesday, 11th July 2023 at 2 p.m. The attendance is by invitation and open to the public via a Zoom webinar ID 818-0947-8583, passcode 017219, and also live